My husband invited 5 of his friends to his house for sehri. I slept without any worries after fasting, but those 5 friends took turns with me. Today, after breaking the fast, I was very tired. I was thinking of falling on the bed and sleeping right away, but after hearing my husband's words, I was shocked. He said, "Today, you should make arrangements for sehri. My friends are coming to our house tonight, and they will have sehri here today." After hearing my husband's words, I was lost and exhausted. I was feeling bad. I felt as if I had been working hard all day, even though I hadn't done much work today. Perhaps this is what happens to all women after fasting, that they are exhausted. I didn't want to get out of bed at all, but I knew that if I did even the slightest thing wrong, my husband would ignore me and would tell his friends. I ignored my aching waist and went to the kitchen. My husband and his friends loved mincemeat parathas. First, I put the mincemeat on the stove to cook and then started kneading the dough for sehri, so that when I woke up for sehri, everything would be ready on time. I had also decided to wash the dishes. After that, when I came to my room, I fell asleep as soon as I fell on the bed. I didn't know where I was. Their friends had come to our house, and by that time they were all in the drawing room. I knew that now all of them would have to be there. I had no tension about waking up at the time of sehri. My husband used to wake me up for sehri every day. Now I had fallen asleep without any worries, and then my eyes were opened only when my husband shook me. It was sehri time, and I quickly got up from my bed. Now I was making sehri for all of them in the kitchen, while all of them were sitting outside in the lounge, and that's where I had made sehri for them. They were laughing loudly and joking about it. During this time, they were also addressing me, and I was answering them with yes out of bounds. But I did not like such people at all, and these friends of my husband did not even look at me. I often told them to stay away from these people. Their company is not good. Whenever I told them this, they would always get angry and tell me that you don't know why you keep following my friends. And now that they were talking to my husband in a flirtatious manner, I was embarrassed to hear their conversation. I understood the purpose of their conversation. They were secretly teasing my husband about me, and my husband was also enjoying all these things in a joking manner. It was a wonder to me that how a man could tolerate such a thing about his wife, even in a joking manner to another man, no matter how close he was to him. But perhaps these people were very frank with each other, and everyone was teasing each other in the same way. I quickly set suhoor in front of them, and then went to my room myself. After praying Fajr, I fell asleep again, because I was not in the habit of sleeping during the day. If I slept during the day, my health would deteriorate. Since Ramadan started, my husband had started leaving for work earlier than usual, and he would also return early in the evening. He never woke me up when he left. After he left, I would get up on my own and do housework. Even today, when he left, I was sleeping in my room. My eyes opened with a strange feeling. It was the feeling of someone watching me, the heat of someone's eyes. Even while sleeping, I felt as if someone was staring at me. When I opened my eyes, all 5 of my husband's friends were standing in front of me, and they were all looking at me with bold eyes. I quickly hid my existence in the blanket. I was feeling something strange. Only then did I feel the life leaving my hands and feet. One by one, they started moving towards me, and then these people. I belonged to a class where everyone was used to working hard to earn their living. My father was a daily wage laborer. My mother used to sew people's clothes, and my elder sisters also did this work with my mother. My mother passed on this skill to my sisters. Since I had no interest in all these things, I was always used to dreaming big. I always had this dream that I would become someone by studying and writing, and then I would not have to do these small tasks. Whenever I expressed my thoughts in front of my sisters and mother, they would get angry with me and tell me that a person should dream according to his status. Flying high makes a person fall on his face. I used to listen to their words in one ear and let them out in the other. In those days, my 2 sisters had got married to a wealthy family. They were both brothers, and both were running their own small businesses. After some investigation, my father had agreed to them, and then both the sisters got married at the same time. Now, I was left alone with my mother and father at home. Since there was no one else at home, I had to do household chores. This always bothered me. Washing dishes would ruin my hands. Working in the sun would ruin my home. That was the reason why I used to work, but at the same time, I was also worried about my beauty. Sometimes my mother would laugh at my words, and sometimes she would scold me and say, "Fear God, don't say such things. God's rod is silent, lest he be offended by your arrogance, and you get punished for it." But I always hoped that God would give me a good relationship with a very good family, and then it happened. The person I had a relationship with was alone in the world. He had no one in his family, and he had his own business. He was considered a prosperous person. When I came to know about this, I burst into tears with joy. My mother was also satisfied with this relationship because it suited my mood in every way. I too could not live in a crowded house and could not take on the responsibilities of many people. That is why my mother was satisfied that I would be happy in this house. But my father had many concerns about this relationship. He said that the boy is a bit reckless. He has no sense of seriousness, and I have heard that he keeps chasing girls. My mother dismissed his concerns as if in a pinch and said that such relationships are only for the lucky ones. Just look at your daughter's mood. After hearing my mother's words, I started looking at her with fake displeasure, and then the boy flatly refused to accept dowry. He had done it and said that everything is available in my house. I do not lack anything. I felt proud of this fact, and then I left and came to this house, and then I found my father's concerns to be quite correct. He was really carefree, and seriousness did not even touch this person. He was very popular among his friends, and he himself was even ready to give his life for his friends. Perhaps the reason for this was that he had no one in his own family. Whenever he was alone, he would keep a group of his friends around him. His friends would come to the house and roam around the house, making noise. This made me very angry. In the beginning, I used to scold my husband about what his friends were doing in the house. Then, after listening to me, he would get angry and say that they are my friends. What is wrong with them coming to my house? I used to get annoyed after listening to them. I do not object to your friends coming to my house. I have come 1,000 times from my side, but why do they keep peeking in every room and everywhere? When I am in the kitchen, they come to the kitchen. Even if I am resting, lying down, or sleeping in the room, they come and stand on my head. I don't like all this. After hearing this, they said, "Don't worry, you will never get a chance to complain to them. They consider you their sister-in-law. They consider you their sister, even when they treat you so openly. This logic of theirs was beyond my understanding. I had seen this same environment in my home and my family from the beginning, that all the friends of our father used to live outside the house, and the friends of the rest of the cousins, etc., did not come to their house either. This was my husband's peculiar logic. He used to say that my friends have as much right over me as you do. Hearing them, I would laugh out loud. I was his wife, so how could his friends have the same right over me? When I would ask him this, he would open his mouth and say that he used to call me his friend, that after marriage, your wife would not let you meet us. She would keep us away from us. And look, that's what happened. As soon as you came, you started to mistreat me. And after hearing this, I was left holding my head. It was very difficult to explain to him. Every second or third day, his friends would come to the house, and I would feel their eyes going all over my body. I would be very confused by their eyes, and I would be surprised at my husband, who didn't even notice the changing eyes of his friends, and if I said anything, he would call me wrong. And now I was worried, thinking that how could I live with a person like him who was so frivolous? That day, I was just about to cook dinner when my husband called me saying that my friends are coming to my house today, and you should arrange food for them. Hearing this, I became angry but refrained from saying anything, knowing that he would start complaining again when I felt safe in silence. On the one hand, I was very annoyed with his free-spirited friends who used to come every day and would not leave without eating. After cooking food for them and fulfilling their request, I became half-hearted. I, who was happy that my in-laws did not have many people, I would not have to do the work of the entire in-laws. There is only me and my husband. How much work is there for 2 people But all these dreams of mine were shattered. The burden of his friends was always on my head, and their jokes and the chatter was never ending. Some wanted kebabs, some wanted fish fry. Everyone had different demands, and my husband did not like me to deny his friends anything. When it was time for my husband's friends to come, I cooked food for them again. While I was baking bread, my husband entered the house with his friends, and one of his friends, who did not even look at me, came straight to the kitchen instead of going to the drawing room. At that time, I was without a dupatta, and he started talking to me frankly. But his eyes were on my body. I had quickly wrapped my dupatta around myself. I was very confused by his eyes. Seeing my nervous look, he laughed and said that my friend is very lucky to have a wife like you. Her eyes were not supporting her. She was calling me sister-in-law with her tongue, but seeing the dirt and lust in her eyes, I was scared. She quickly asked her to move away. "Come inside and sit down. I am just going to cook." After cooking, I came to my room and sat down. Now I was very worried that how should I tell my husband about this? After eating, my husband had asked me to make tea. Today, I was very tired. My back was hurting badly, but still I came to the kitchen to fulfill his request. After making tea, I put the cup on the tray and reached the door of the drawing room. As soon as I had just raised my hand to knock on the door, I was shocked to hear the voices coming from inside. I was trembling with fear after hearing the kind of things my husband's friends were talking to them about me. They were teasing my husband because of his physical features, and I felt as if I had become naked in so many people. But then, my surprise knew no bounds when my husband's laughter was the loudest, and he had enjoyed this vulgar joke very much. Seeing this, my mind was tingling with anger. I knocked on the door and handed the tea to my husband and returned to my room. My anger was not decreasing in any way. I was getting angry with his friend who had said such a vulgar thing, and more than that, I was angry with my husband who was listening to all this. Now when he came into the room, I burst out in front of him and said to him, "You know that husband and wife are each other's clothes. Who tells such things about his wife to his friends? Instead of scolding him, you were laughing at his words." They looked at me in surprise. "How old-fashioned you are." This joke goes on among friends. I was surprised by their logic. They didn't even feel the disrespect towards me. Then they said that a person only talks to those they consider their own and don't come between me and my friends. Now I told them to explain that if they are your friends, then you should keep their friendship to yourself. If you want to bring them to your house, then definitely bring them to your house. If you want to invite them, definitely do it. But keep them to themselves. When those people talk about me, when they try to be frank with me, I don't like this, but they listen to me in one ear and let it out the other. They also talk to these people about things that no one knew except the two of us, and as a matter of shame, they shouldn't have told anyone. But when I heard them talking to their friends, I was left scratching my head and wondering how to explain to this person that things are not as they seem. And now, when these people had their breakfast here, I thought that they would leave the house with my husband in the morning. That's when I was sleeping peacefully and peacefully. But I didn't know that those people were at home, and my husband had left them there and gone to the office himself. I don't know why they trusted their friends so much. They never even thought that their wife was alone in the house, and they should have at least sent their friends away and left the house, but they didn't care about it, and now I'm going to have to deal with this again. I was suffering. They had stripped me naked and humiliated me. I was crying and exhausted. I was in a bad state. I could not even move from my place, and then darkness fell on my senses and I lost consciousness. I don't know how long I remained unconscious. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. My husband was sitting next to me. There was a window in front of me. The night scene was visible outside the window, and this night had also come into my life, and that meant that I had been unconscious the whole day. When I saw my husband, there were signs of worry on his face. He seemed very worried. His messy hair and unkempt appearance reflected the worry and suffering inside him. Seeing me regaining consciousness, the nurse inquired about my condition and then left the room. Now my husband and I were alone in the room. Then my husband got up and came to me and held my hand and said, Tell me who he was, who did all this. Tell me. I will kill him. I will not leave him alive. How dare he do this to my wife?" Hearing his words, I laughed out loud. My laughter slowly subsided. It was getting louder than before. I was laughing so hard that tears came to my eyes while laughing. And now when I saw my husband, I don't know what I had done in my eyes that he was terrified. He started telling me, "Don't do it like that. Don't look like that. Something will happen to my heart. Tell me directly who they were and why they did all this to you." And then, after hearing what I told my husband, he couldn't believe it. He was shaking his head from side to side in uncertainty. "My friends can't do that. You have misunderstood. They are very nice. You call them your sister and brother-in-law. You can't even think like that about yourself." He couldn't believe it, but his disbelief couldn't change the truth. And then when I came home, my husband was completely lost. He didn't laugh or talk or leave the house. Now he had stopped talking to any of his friends. Now he would come straight home from the office and he would be completely silent all the time. When I saw him in such a silent state, I asked him the reason for this. He burst into tears and said, "Because of my stupidity and mistake, you had to endure all this. You had to endure all this. I will never be able to forgive myself. Why didn't I understand my friends? Why couldn't I understand the meaning of their eyes? When you tried to tell me all this many times and I always denied you. Now look at the depth of it." Seeing her crying, I also started crying and said that back then I used to tell you not to bring friends to your house and keep them to yourself. But you did not listen to me, and you saw the end of it. How much dirt was filled in their hearts and minds for me, and now because of them, I have not been able to raise my head and talk to anyone. It took me a long time to put myself back in life. Now my husband was fed up with this place. He did not want to stay here at all. He started trying to go out, and then after a few months when both of us got visas, he sold everything from here and shifted out of Pakistan with me. My mother and father had opposed our decision. They said that what are we missing? We should stay here. But what both of us knew, mother and father did not know. The staring eyes of our friends here were making my husband emotional after hearing what they said. And I was afraid that he would do something wrong and that his whole life would be ruined. That's why I didn't oppose his decision. I supported him in this decision. I didn't want to stay here anymore, and then by our joint decision, we left Pakistan. I often talked to my mother and father on the phone. My mother and father used to scold me that you both made a mistake by leaving here. What was missing here, and I couldn't tell him the truth even if I wanted to. I knew that he felt hurt after hearing this, and I wanted to save my parents from the pain. Now my husband had changed a lot from before. Now he had become very serious, and his friends here were very few, and even if they did, they kept them outside the house. Because now he had come to his senses that he should not bring strangers into his house, nor should he tell them anything about his excessive life. Friendship also has a limit. When a person goes beyond this limit, he has to face problems.